Welcome to Relationship Equity, a podcast that explores how successful people cultivate meaningful connections with others in their personal and professional lives. Learn from the stories, insights, and advice of leaders, innovators, and influencers who have built strong bonds with their teams, their customers, their communities, and their families. Here's Richard Walker.
My guest is Dr. David Choi, the Conrad Hilton Chair of Entrepreneurship at Loyola Marymount University. With over 20 years of experience as an academic, consultant, and entrepreneur, Dr. Choi has been instrumental in building a nationally recognized entrepreneurship program at LMU and impacting the lives of thousands of students, including my son, Billy. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with, I like for people to, you were extremely successful in your life and in your work. And I think that people as humans, we tend to make assumptions. If we don't know something, we make shit up, right, in our own heads. And we can assume that people have had this straight and narrow path to success. Well, it's often not the case. And you have a very, very unique background. So I'd like to start with that, if you don't mind, David. Tell us about your upbringing, where you grew up, and as much as you'd like to share, because I know you've got a wild and wonderful background.
I've gotten used to sharing my life because I share my stories with my students. And I do that because I think it does actually teach a little bit of a lesson about life. So my life was full of failures as I was growing up. I was born in Korea. I went to Germany when I was 10. And that's when my troubles really started. So I was a little bit of a troublemaker. And then when I was almost 15, my dad suggested I go to States and live with my uncle. I didn't really realize at the time that I was getting kicked out of my house. But I learned later, many years later. And I lived with my uncle in the U.S. for a year, and then I got kicked out of his house. And then I lived with 4 different families until I had no more place to go. Lived with 4 different foster families. And one time I was sitting at the bus circle, this pretty girl approaches me, "Hey, you look like you're kicked out of a house." So I ended up living with that family, who then accepted me as almost a family member. My whole life until then was just a series of failures. And then I sort of straightened up through college. It was getting better. Professional life's getting better. And then, of course, I had a bunch of failures in the corporate life and as an entrepreneur.
Okay, let me slow you down. You're going way too fast. We got to slow you down. First, I want to ask you, you're so transparent about telling this story. I mean, you mentioned failures 3 times already. Most people, they're not, I shouldn't say, maybe most, they're just not that transparent with their, as you call, failures. Why is it? Why is it that you're so open to share what you call your failures?
Over the years, long time ago, I wasn't willing to share my failures, but as I shared them, I realized people could relate to me more. I could be a better mentor. I used to also mentor kids who had troubled childhoods and teenage years, and they could relate to me right away. But even a lot of good kids like Billy, I think many of those kids could relate to me. So much of life and successful people are about being able to get second chances, right? I was in Italy just a few weeks ago. I saw the Vatican for the first time since I was a kid, and realized this was an accomplishment of a person, St. Peter, who had a second chance of being a good disciple, right? You know how in the Bible he denied Jesus 3 times when he was on the cross. He says, "I don't know that guy." And then he kind of felt bad about himself, straightened out, went to Rome and passed on the gospel. And just like Jesus predicted, he was a rock that God built the church on, right? I looked at that and I thought, this is an accomplishment of a guy, with his second chances.
I can't tell you how much I respect your willingness to share that, because I think you're absolutely right. I mean, second chances. But you said a lot of things very fast there. A lot of things happened. And then you said, this pretty lady said, "You look like you need a home. Why don't you come and stay with us?" It can't be as easy. I mean, surely there was more to that than
No, that's a crazy part of my story. So I've so many of these stories, and when I share them, people think I'm lying or making things up. But I had run out of places to live. This is beginning of my junior year in high school. I was sitting at the bus circle in front of my high school, just thinking where I'd sleep that day. And I had, some friends' houses I could sleep at. I wasn't even worried, actually. I was just sitting there. And then this girl who had transferred to my high school, I'd met her once before, comes by and says, "Hey, you look like you got kicked out of your house or something." And I said, "Jenny, that's your name? Okay, how'd you know that?" And then she said, "I was joking." And then she runs to the public phone and comes back and says, "I talked to my mom and you can live with us." And then I said, "No, thank you. I don't think this is going to work out." I turned her down. And then next day she came back and said, "I talked to my parents and you have to live with us." And, I slept poorly the night before at some friend's house. So I thought, okay, maybe I need to give this a chance. So that's literally what happened.
So that had to be a massive turning point in your life.
Yeah, I think I changed or improved gradually still. But I think one of the big lessons there I learned is that somebody could be nice to somebody that they don't even know. Sometimes you can be nice to people that may not even deserve it.
Right. But there's a difference between being nice and between what they did for you. They didn't know you. You could have been an axe murderer for all they knew. I mean, you can never judge a book by its cover. You don't look like an axe murderer, but you could have been one. But they took you in. I mean, that's an incredible thing for somebody to do, and they change your life. Now, when somebody does something that impactful to you, whether it's subconscious or conscious, what did that do for you in terms of going forward with your life? I have no doubts that not just that, but random acts of extreme kindness, I just made that up, random acts of extreme kindness,
Yeah.
I'm sure that impacted your life where you've done the same for others or similar things for others.
Yeah, I tried to. And these people were incredible people. I don't know where they came from. They're like angels. So just to finish up that story, when I first met the mom, Lenora, she told me, "Hey, you can live here until you find another place." And I knew that I couldn't find another place. So I said, I don't think I could really find another place. And then she said, "Well, then you live here until you graduate from high school. It'll be 2 years, right?" And then Bob comes in thinking about the dad, talking about trust, even though I could be an axe murderer. He goes, "David, nice to meet you. This is how you work the alarm system. This is in the 80s. This is like, very, very few homes had alarm systems. And this is a nice house with daughters in the family. So this is how you work the alarm system. We have to go to choir practice, but we'll see you later." They just left me there and trusted me. So these are incredible people. And so I learned more about life. And, these are pretty instrumental years when I was, 17 and 18, so on. So I learned more from Bob about life and behavior and professionalism than from anybody. And in terms of, extreme kindness, I think I didn't quite feel it then, but ever since I started teaching, I have the chance to give back, I try my best to be a little bit more like Bob and Lenora and how they were to me. And I think that's one of the reasons I work so damn hard at my job, is to, sort of give back the way I've been treated by Bob and Laura. And I wish I treated Bob and Laura better when they were alive and well. But I give back through what I do at school.
Now, when they brought you in, did they ask for anything in return? Did they say, "David, we're going to take you in, but we expect this from you. when you're all grown up and making a lot of money, we want you to pay. Did they ask? Did they ask for anything?
No, nothing at all. And they refuse to take rent. And I really over time convinced them, to take some of my money. And they eventually kind of did, but then they gave it back to me in other ways,
So that to me is the epitome of what I call relationship equity. Right there, that story right there, a massive random act of extreme kindness with expecting nothing in return.
Right.
And I'll guarantee that wonderful family, they obviously that's how they live their lives, and their lives will have been enriched by operating that way. Because that could have backfired, but they took that risk. We talk about taking risks, and we're going to talk a little bit about taking risks in business and in life in general. But that's a massive life risk that they took, and obviously it worked out for not just you, but no doubt for them as well. Because if I put myself in their situation, professional achievements are important, but to me, nothing compares with life achievements. And for them, that was a massive life achievement because they significantly changed a young man's life. Now, it's up to you to do what you did with it. You might have gone in a different direction, but you chose the track that you took, which has been incredibly successful. But without somebody giving you that opportunity, a platform for you to build your career and your life from that, is very hard to achieve.
No doubt about it. I mean, without them, I have no idea what would have happened to me or where I'd be today.
It's a truly incredible story. So how would you describe yourself as a teenager?
As a teenager, I think I was just an angry kid. I was probably a little bit of a rebellious kid. But when I went to Germany at the time, the 70s, and I was the only Asian kid in town, and I was, bullied, attacked by everybody in the neighborhood, I think that just made me an angry person at the time. And then when I came to the States, I still hadn't recovered, and I was just not afraid to get in trouble. So that's sort of the kid I was.
Would you consider yourself a bit of a wild child?
I went through that period, and then what happened, I guess, is I was sort of branded as a sort of a bad kid, even though I hadn't actually even if I went through a period of not having done anything bad for a couple of years, I was just branded as a kid who was kicked out of different homes.
Right.
So that just made things difficult.
Now I'm going to ask you a kind of a weird question. Would you say there's any correlation between being a wild, I'll use the term wild child, and how successful you've been with your life and your career because of kind of who you were, and that, you obviously had a tremendous amount to offer the world. Nobody knows at that age how much you've got to offer the world. You obviously have changed so many people's lives for the better. But can you draw any correlation? Because again, back to my initial statement about people just assume that you went on this perfect track to be where you are right now. You did. But the reason I'm kind of, I'm spending time on this is because I'm hoping there's a lot of parents and hopefully younger people listening to this that aren't on that straight and narrow track that can still be extremely successful.
Yeah, there is psychological studies that show, for example, if you are rebellious, there's a higher chance of you becoming an entrepreneur, for example. There are studies like that. And I think when I meet somewhat troubled kids, it takes usually, a couple of good friends, maybe a few years older, that should sort of guide them in the right direction. That often makes a humongous difference. One of the reasons I thought about teaching, and I realized that might be one of my talents, is, well, I guess I was already sort of thinking about teaching, but when I was in the doctoral program at UCLA, they matched me with a kid who had problems in middle school, high school. He had a very, very bad upbringing, and I was supposed to mentor him. I did it willingly, and then the kid, of course, he had already sort of straightened out by the time I met him, and he was like a sophomore in high school, but ended up going to Yale, becoming a consultant and a venture capitalist now. And And of course, he ended up living with me for some months, and I gave him his first.
Hang on, back up. You're saying things just like, oh, these things just happen. What do you mean? Did you ended up living with you for a few months? How did that come about?
Well, actually, that happened a little later. So initially, we met and we hung out. I gave him some advice. He applied to colleges. He did really well, like I said, and then he got into Yale, and then he had problems with financial aid because his mother never filed any taxes in years, and so they couldn't verify that he was indeed poor. So I ended up calling the financial aid office myself and told them the situation, and then Yale said, "Okay, we'll never ask him about money again." After his first year at Yale, I called around and got him an internship. And then during the internship, he needed a place. So I said, I want you to stay with my place. So ended up living with me during that summer. But we were still good friends, But I thought one thing that happened was I realized how rewarding it is to guide somebody in the right direction. And then I thought, I'm kind of good at this stuff. I should do this a lot more.
Maybe
often.
I should do more of it. So you mentioned this. So this wonderful family took you in. They got you through high school, and then you said you just went to college. Was that always something that you thought you would do? Was when you were younger and more troubled? Was that, or was that? How did that happen?
So when I was certainly in middle school, I never thought about going to school. Certainly college, because my grade average was like a C average, and then by 8th grade, I thought I kind of straightened out, and I had achieved a B average one semester. I thought I was doing awesome. And then when I came to States, I was living with my uncle. I actually had all A's for a semester, and it was totally unintended. But the American school was so easy compared to.
You said the American school system is a lot easier.
Yeah. And I think I chose like really easy classes because I didn't even know what the different classes were. And I thought, oh, feels kind of good. So I maintained that grade point average throughout high school, even though I was getting kicked out of different homes. And so then I thought maybe I should go to college, and all my friends were talking about going to college. So I just maintained the grades.
So how did that happen, getting to college then? Let's talk about that track. And then I want to talk about how you made the decisions, with your entrepreneurship and your Boston consult. I mean, you've done a lot of stuff, and we don't have enough time to talk all through. But I want to kind of understand the track that you took, the decisions that you made, and how you made them, and then ultimately we'll talk about what you're doing today.
Yeah, you know what happened to me. So on high school, I also thought about going to college and becoming a good boy that my parents would be proud of. And my parents at this time were in Korea. And my dad wasn't making enough money for me to be able to go to college in the U.S. So what my mom did, and she's my entrepreneurial hero, she started a small business when I was in high school. Little store selling baby clothing and baby stuff. But she made really good money. And she did it basically to support my college education. So I couldn't let her down. So I think that's another reason I studied a little bit extra. And even through college, she worked on this business, and she basically paid for my college. Unfortunately, she was never able to attend my graduation because she collapsed from, I think, overwork and exhaustion 1 month before my graduation.
Oh, that's very sad.
So, yes, but that's, I still see her as an entrepreneurial. My entrepreneurial hero. I think she did succeed in fulfilling her goal, right, which is send her boy to college, making sure it turns out okay. So I did go to college. I'm still working on turning out okay. But yeah, so she's my entrepreneurial hero, and I think that's another reason I work too hard at my job, because I think about parents who have to support their kids with tuition, going through a private school like mine.
I think we all have inspiration or people that inspire us in our lives. It sounds like your mother was the one that really inspired you, and no doubt there's others as well. Now, you've inspired thousands of people throughout your career, but let's talk about, you said early on that you always felt like you were a teacher, and I believe if you're a teacher, you're a teacher at heart, whatever it is. I mean, I'm a teacher. I'm in business now, but there's nothing that satisfies me more than to be able to impart some kind of wisdom and knowledge, onto somebody, and then take that and it improves their life in some way, shape, or form. And you realize early on you're a teacher and an entrepreneur. So how did you, when you went through college, what was you do? I think one of the most difficult things for young people to do and I also want to talk about people that don't go through college as well. I'll sideline that for a second, because that's a whole different can of worms to open. But one of the most difficult decisions for people to make is, number one, is when they get into college, what do I want to do when I grow up? Now, some of us are still trying to figure that out. How did you decide, when you left college, what happened then for you to get on the track that you got on outside when you graduated college?
So I had no idea what I was doing. So because I grew up in the Silicon Valley area, I thought I should major in engineering. I looked at the engineering majors, and to be honest, I picked the easiest of the engineering, which was industrial engineering. It was sort of the least engineering-like engineering. And I did pretty well. I looked at what people with good grades do. They keep going to grad school. So I applied for the PhD program in industrial engineering and got in. So I was in the doctoral program for industrial engineering. And then I realized I have no idea what to write my thesis on, because I have no idea how the world works and and what the world needs, right? I have no idea. So, and I have no parents, nobody to guide me. So I said, I should get a job for a while and then kind of think about what I want to write my thesis on if I ever do my doctorate again. So I finished, instead of the doctorate program, I finished with my master's after a year and a half, and then got a job in Silicon Valley, during which time I thought about what I want to do with my life.
What job did you get in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting job. It was there was a group at Stanford. They did decision analysis, sort of quantitative analysis for business applications. So the Stanford professors has founded this company. And so the company was probably about 70% Stanford masters and PhD grads. And then there were some MIT people, and then there was a few Berkeley people like me. So I joined that company. It was called Decision Focus. Great organization, really nice people. So I spent about 2.5 years there, almost 3 years there, thinking about what I wanted to do with my life.
And then what?
And then after much thought, I really wanted to become a professor eventually. So I looked at doctoral programs. I even thought about majoring in sociology, because I really wanted to, address certain social problems as well. But then I realized in sociology, you look at sort of extreme situations and you don't really have solutions. But in the business school, you actually can influence how the world works. So I decided to do a PhD in business. Of course, business PhD programs also offer financial support. So ended up coming to UCLA.
So let's talk about the progression there then, because you got yourself on a track that really, that was your passion. And I love what you said about the sociology and how business can positively impact the world. I want to open a can now that's something I'm very passionate about, because I believe we're in a very unfair system. And there's, I talk about the socioeconomic pyramid and the people at the top, they've got access to education and healthcare that people at the bottom of the pyramid don't, write about that in my book and what have you. But let's face it, a lot of people are fortunate. You've got the means, the family that can support the academics, and some don't. And so let me just talk for a minute about what we're doing at York to address that on a very, very tiny scale. And that's our emerging talent program. And we created a program that, after we have this conversation, I'd like to talk with you more about, because I think there's a lot more that we can do with it. Because frankly, I didn't think we could pull it off. I really didn't, subconsciously. I never said that aloud, but it's been incredible to see the results of people that we've got through this program. Obviously, don't have time to go into all the details, but most of the people that come through this program, they got to go through a different kind of testing than they typically would to get into academia. But it's been incredible to see the results of people that are excelling in a career in the technology field. A lot don't have a traditional 4-year degree, and some might have a degree in something completely outside of the technology field, but they are thriving and doing extremely well because the system we've created, it's a technology-based system to start with, using AI to basically determine, and I'm going to kind of blow your mind a little bit here. What it doesn't do, typically when we evaluate people's talents and their value, we do that based on what they've already done, right? And that makes sense because you can typically quantify, and everybody relies on the resumes, we know that, but you can typically, to a decent degree, verify what people have done with their careers and their lives to a given point where you meet with them. Our system doesn't do that. What it does, it evaluates people based on what they're capable of doing, which is a very difficult thing to ascertain, but we've proven that concept over and over and over again with the technology system, with what we've created as a company. So it's very difficult to determine what people are truly capable of because you got to look into a crystal ball, and one of the biggest factors of people's success, in my opinion, in business and life, are people's critical thinking skills. Very difficult to determine. How do you within your program now? I've jumped way to the end here because I do want to talk about what you do right now, and you bring these wonderful, eager young minds into your program. Do you believe you can teach critical thinking skills?
Totally. By the way, I know a little bit about what you do with your emerging talent program. I think it's remarkable. I think what you're doing is just incredible. So kudos to you for doing it.
Well, thank you, but I can't take credit because I didn't want to do it because I didn't think it was possible. I really didn't, but we will talk more about that because it's mind-boggling, and there's such a massive application for what we've started that I want to talk with you about it to get your advice to see how we can expand this to provide opportunity, not just provide opportunities to people that have got the talent, but to massively increase the talent pool and help people achieve what they're truly capable of with this system that we've created. So thank you for saying that, but I really, would like to meet with you to get your advice.
I get questions like, can you teach, for example, entrepreneurship, and which also, of course, involves critical thinking, evaluation of opportunities, and those kind of things. I think what's happening in higher education these days is that we've gotten smarter about how we teach. So no longer just lists and theories, right? What we find important is experiential learning. So learning by doing. It tends to sort of turn the table in terms of, if you're just a smart intellectual guy, you might find this actually kind of uncomfortable. Whereas somebody now, a little bit more street smart but critical thinking, might find this kind of learning actually more effective, more useful. So we find through experiential exercises, people can learn, and they might use different aspects of their brain, right? They might use some intellectual, some might rely on emotional, but they learn through experience. Thereby also they don't have to memorize a list they're gonna forget in 3 weeks. This learning that they do is actually permanent. And then the other thing we find really important is to change or improve our mindset, right? Sort of, can I do this? And one of the things we really focus on, of course, is the entrepreneurial mindset because we teach entrepreneurship.
Can you give your definition of what you mean by the entrepreneurship mindset? What does that mean to you?
Mindset is basically sort of how you think about the world, how you view the world, how you view yourself. But the way we simplified it, and thanks to my colleague Alex Glassenberg, who comes from psychology, we simplified it to 3 different components: being proactive, being innovative, and being resilient. So we tell our students, just focus on those 3 things, and a lot of what you need for the entrepreneur mindset is sort of covered by those 3 things. So ask yourself, can I be more proactive in my life? Can I do something without even being told by my parents or my boss? What can I do to do things maybe before others so I can have a competitive advantage? Can I do something differently? I've tried this hasn't worked. What can I do to do things differently and have better success? Innovative doesn't mean creative or artistic. It just means, can I try something different? And sometimes if you try different things to the outside world, you look very creative, but you just could try different things. And maybe most important is resilient, right? So something hasn't worked, try again. Don't give up.
If you think about, new products, how many new products created as something brand spanking new from scratch that nobody's ever thought of? Very few. I'll give you an example, David. Listen to this. Tennis shoes. Been around for a million years, many different kinds. And I have this stupid rule. This is going to be a silly story. Just bear with me, though. I have this weird rule of my own. I won't spend more than $50 on a pair of tennis shoes. For Christmas, my wife buys me this pair of tennis shoes, and she knows my rule. I've never heard of these shoes before, and it's a non-brand shoe. So I thought, okay, she stayed under my $50 limit. Until I went to the store myself to buy something else, and I'm looking for a different pair of shoes, and I see these shoes on the rack, and they're $150. Hoka's. I mean, I live in a cave. I've never heard of Hoka shoes before, but my point being, somebody decided we are going to design a new pair of tennis shoes, something that existed for years and years and years, and we're going to charge double of everybody else. I mean, that's your example of innovation. It wasn't, it's not a brand new piece of footwear. It's just a better version of something that already exists. Can you talk to that?
Well, yeah, that particular case, it's not a huge innovation in terms of functionality, material, that kind of stuff. But there's probably an innovation in terms of marketing, right? Branding, right? And yeah, it's probably a small innovation if you objectively look at it, but could be a big, innovation from a customer viewpoint, right? So a lot of our students and graduates have created, really great business around consumer products. And, when it comes to consumer products, those kind of differences make a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get into the huge difference you make in the lives of your students and future entrepreneurs. But unfortunately, we have to take a break. Next time on Relationship Equity, Loyola Marymount University Professor Dr. David Choi will discuss the strategic risk assessment that all entrepreneurs must navigate.
There are some times when you do take risks, but you take minimal risks. So maybe in the old days of entrepreneurship, is you bet the farm on something and maybe you hit it. But today we take a more of a scientific approach to entrepreneurship. So we have an idea, you build something small, build a little prototype to see if you get positive reaction by customers, right? You find a way to spend a little bit of money and time and try something out. And when you become more sure over time of what you're doing, then you put in more time and financial resources so that you don't take unnecessary risks. And then there are also very smart strategies where you find ways to reduce risk even farther. So there are some times at the end where you have to take certain risks, but I don't believe in taking unnecessary risks.
This has been Relationship Equity. If you want to take your career, your business, or your personal relationships to the next level, reach out to Richard at yorksolutions.net. You can also get Richard's book, Relationship Equity, your cornerstone investment to great gains in business and life, on Amazon now. Relationship Equity with Richard Walker is a production of Forbes Books.